I own a lake now, a real one, not a muddy pond, not a drainage ditch with pretty sign, but an actual 12-acre lake in the middle of a 340-home subdivision. And the woman who once called the cops on me for fishing there ended up needing my written permission to use it. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm 67, retired, and widowed. For 40 years, I worked as a civil engineer in county planning, reading plats, checking drainage plans, and making sure developers didn't quietly cheat when nobody was looking. Linda and I bought our house in Silverbrook Estates in 2018. She had already been fighting cancer for 2 years. She loved water, said it quieted her mind. The neighborhood lake sat in the center of the subdivision, and every evening she'd sit outside and watch the sunset move across it. She passed in late 2021, and after she was gone, the silence inside the house got heavy. So I started fishing. Now Silverbrook had an HOA, and the president was Brenda Kowalski. Brenda was 52, a real estate agent, and the kind of person who acted like property values justified almost anything. She fined people for grass that was too tall, parking overnight on the street, and mailboxes that weren't the approved shade of black. Most people paid because arguing with an HOA is exhausting even when you're right. Then in March of 2024, I got a letter from Brenda that made me read it 3 times. The HOA said I owed $85 a month in lake maintenance fees, retroactive to when I moved in. That came to $5,100 due immediately. On top of that, there was a $500 registration fee for my kayak. The letter said the money covered aquatic management, infrastructure upkeep, and liability insurance. Now, $85 a month doesn't sound wild until you do the math. 340 homes times 85 times 12 months is $346,000 a year for one small neighborhood lake. I paid it under protest because I didn't want to fight. Because once I paid, I used that lake every morning. Late April, I was out there at dawn when I heard boots pounding down the dock. I turned and saw Brenda marching toward me with 2 sheriff's deputies behind her. One of them was Deputy Rita Flores, who I knew from county meetings years earlier. Brenda pointed at me like I'd robbed a bank. She told the deputies I was trespassing and needed to be removed. I paddled closer and said, "Morning, deputy. I live here. I paid the fee. I've got the receipt." Brenda cut in, said I had committed 14 violations in a month, said I was disturbing the peace, said I needed board approval to use the lake. Then she said the sentence that told me everything. This is my lake. Not the community's. Not the HOA's. Hers. Deputy Flores told her there was no criminal issue and that this was a civil matter. The deputies left. Brenda stayed on the dock glaring at me. The next morning there was a certified letter on my door. $2,500 for unauthorized watercraft use. Another $2,500 for violating quiet hours, even though there were no quiet hours for the lake. Pay within 30 days, or the HOA would lien my house. 2 days later, county code enforcement cited me because my lawn was 3.2 inches high, even though county code allowed up to 6. In the notes, it said complaint filed by B. Kowski. So I asked one simple question. Who actually owned the lake? A few days later, I met Lenny Pacheco for coffee. Lenny's a county surveyor now, but years ago he worked under me. I asked him to pull up the parcel records for the lake. He opened the county GIS map on his phone, zoomed in, frowned, then frowned harder. The parcel was labeled Track 14B. No owner of record. That same afternoon, I went to see Clarice Drummond, a real estate attorney, who still remembered a favor I once did for her father. I handed her the HOA bylaws and Brenda's letters. Clarice read the language about lake access and said there was no clear recorded easement tied to the HOA's claim of control. The next day, Lenny called and told me to meet him at the clerk's office. He had the original 1987 subdivision plat spread across a table. There in the center was Track 14B, marked for future county use as drainage retention, ownership to be determined upon infrastructure completion. Then came the twist. The developer had gone bankrupt in 1991. The county never finished the process. The lake parcel was never deeded to the HOA, never assigned anyone, never taxed. Nobody owned it. Clarice told me what came next. Quiet title action. File in court. Notify anyone who might claim an interest, including the county and the HOA. Publish notice. Wait the statutory period. If no one objects, the court can award title. So on May 15th, 2024, I filed, and I told nobody. I just kept fishing. The county answered quickly. Their attorney said they had no objection. The HOA never responded at all. Later, I learned the notice had gone to an old registry address they hadn't updated in years. Brenda, who loved weaponizing paperwork, had neglected her own. On day 61, the judge signed the order. I recorded the deed that afternoon. Owner, Marcus Webb. 12 acres. My lake. Brenda found out 3 weeks later when she sent another certified letter threatening more fines. I copied the deed and sent back the shortest letter of my life, informing the HOA that I was now the legal owner of the lake parcel and that any further harassment tied to it would be treated as trespassing. The explosion came fast. Emergency board meeting. Accusations that I was stealing community property. Claims I had forged documents. A big law firm sent me pages of legal threats full of expensive words and very little truth. Brenda also kept pushing code complaints. Mailbox color, trash invisibility, fence repair, porch light brightness. Every complaint got dismissed when I showed the actual code, but the point was to wear me down, and for a while it worked. Neighbors stopped waving. People avoided me. I became the problem because I was the one disrupting the fiction everybody had agreed to live inside. Most people do not hate corruption nearly as much as they hate inconvenience. Then Brenda got greedy. She pushed through a special assessment of $500 from every household to fund the HOA's legal fight over the lake. Most homeowners voted yes because they thought they were protecting their property values. One Tuesday around 2 in the morning, an envelope appeared under my front door. No note, no name, just 3 years of internal HOA meeting minutes. I sat down with coffee and started reading. Buried in those pages were monthly payments to Brenda's husband's LLC, $4,500 a month for consulting services tied to the lake. No reports, no deliverables, no explanation. Then I found a line that changed everything. In a closed session held right after my first fines, Brenda had said they needed to make an example of me to discourage future challenges to board authority. I took the documents to an investigative reporter named Deshaun Morris. He published the story. The bogus authority over the lake, the fees, the payments to Brenda's husband, the retaliation, the lawsuit, all of it. It spread fast. Once cameras showed up and people heard me say I had simply checked the property records, the whole thing stopped sounding like neighborhood drama and started sounding like fraud. At the emergency membership meeting that Saturday, the room was packed. Brenda sat at the front table looking furious and trapped. Janet, the HOA secretary, called the meeting to order, and the first motion was to remove Brenda as president for cause. Misappropriation of funds. Retaliation against a homeowner. Failure to disclose conflicts. The vote passed with 87% in favor. Brenda stood up, called a witch hunt, and stormed out while the room burst into applause. Then Janet looked at me and asked, "Marcus, what do you want?" I could have kept the lake. Legally, it was mine. I could have fenced it off, charged the HOA rent, denied access, maybe even sold it. But revenge is a way of poisoning the person holding it, and Linda would have hated that. So I told him I wanted 3 things. Drop the lawsuit, refund what I paid in bogus lake fees, and if the community wanted access, I would grant a formal easement with real conditions. Lower fees tied to actual maintenance. Full budget transparency. HOA pays insurance and upkeep, and I keep unrestricted fishing rights. At the final signing, an investigator from the Attorney General's office stood up and announced criminal referrals against Brenda and her husband for diverted HOA funds and fraudulent billing. The room went silent. Brenda pointed at me and started ranting that she had only been protecting the community. I stood up and told her the truth in front of everyone. She called the cops on a grieving old man for catching a base, fined me thousands over a kayak, tried to leave my house, and spent her neighbor's money trying to bully me into silence, all because she thought nobody would ever check the paperwork. That's the lesson that stayed with me. Power doesn't always look powerful. Sometimes it shows up as rules, forms, fees, and a voice confident enough to scare people into obedience. And the reason people like Brenda get away with it is simple. Most of us assume someone else already verified the truth. They didn't. We renamed the place Linda's Lake after that. Kids fish there now on Saturdays. The shoreline got cleaned up. The HOA posts real budgets. People ask questions at meetings now. The lake stopped being a weapon and became a place that brings people together. Brenda pleaded guilty. Restitution, probation, community service, license suspension, barred from serving on HOA boards. She and her husband sold their house and left. I didn't celebrate. I just went fishing the next morning. Funny thing is, I never wanted to own the lake. I never wanted the meetings, the lawyers, the headlines, or the apology letters. I wanted dawn, quiet water, and one place left in the world that still felt a little like Linda was sitting beside me. Brenda turned that peace into a fight, and that fight exposed everything. Anyway, so tell me this. When somebody uses rules to control people instead of protect them, is fighting back revenge, or is it justice with a paper trail? And have you ever met a person like Brenda? Someone who thought nobody would challenge them until one day somebody finally did?